So what do you do for work? A contract administrator, aka a receptionist. The title means so many different things to so many people.
I think words and titles can be important.
There's that word administrator. They feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside because they've got the title. But does it matter?
Please no one thinks you're a receptionist.
Hello and welcome to episode 12, I think. 12 of the Phil and Lauren podcast. And today's important question, Lauren. Mm-hmm. The CA, the contract administrator, aka a receptionist. Does this title or this job need a rebrand?
It definitely does when you say receptionist.
I think a few of the CAs, if they click onto this, have already stopped listening.
Please no one thinks you're a receptionist.
It's a topic that we've been researching for a little while now, and we thought it's a worthwhile episode. And the reason being, it's a controversial topic. It's a topic that's got lots of different viewpoints. And I think what I've discovered, that I've always known about this role, but what I've discovered even more as we've been researching it and talking to business owners, directors, a lot of CAs, a lot of contracts managers, commercial managers and project managers, is that there is no one size fits all and there's no clear-cut answer. And I think given all the recent events that's happened in the world in the last couple of weeks with the whole shooting in America and everything, we live in this kind of world at the moment where things are either black or white, right or wrong, this or that. And perhaps it's refreshing today to talk about a topic that doesn't have a right or wrong answer or a this or that answer. And there's a lot of stuff that you and I disagree on.
That's true. We are going to have quite a debate on this one.
So I think it's an interesting debate. So what we're going to talk about is the contract administration role and the challenges that it presents for both employers and employees. And we're going to talk about the perception of the title and whether that's a challenge or whether there's something in that influences the challenges that follow on from that. And the challenges that follow on from that is the career progression of a contract administrator if they don't go to project manager or if they don't rush to the project management role. What does that look like? What does it look like for the level of skill that someone can develop throughout their career, their progression, and that leads into the money part of it.
Yes.
The earning potential for a CA if they don't want to go to be a PM. Some of the limitations and some of the mid-tier businesses that might be there that don't facilitate a lot of growth if they don't take the project management path. So we're going to dig into that from the candidates, or the candidates sound like recruiters, or they are recruiters, but from the employees' perspective rather. And then also discussing from the employer's perspective is that the challenge that they have that, in kind of long story short, whenever you get a CA that's really, really good at their job and they hit their stride, they all know it's not going to be long before that knock on the door comes and go, hey, I either need a promotion because I want to be a PM, or I'm resigned because I got a PM job elsewhere, and now they've got to fill this gap. And it's an ongoing problem. So whenever you fill that gap, it's only a matter of time before you have to do it again, and that creates a lot of time, a lot of pressures. So before we get into that, it's been a long time between drinks. We've been slack. We haven't done the last podcast with Bigger Better, and it was a few months ago now.
Well, we haven't been slack though.
No, we haven't been slack. So what we have been doing in our spare time, where we should have been doing podcasts, is we have completed the online course for university graduates and students as to how to find your first job in construction. It started off as an idea to do as a project over Christmas, and we are now in mid-September. And what led to finishing it over the Christmas holidays led to January, and then led to March and May and August, and we've only just finished it in about a month ago. So that's
yes.
So if you are a university graduate or a student and you're struggling to open a door and get your foot into the industry, you can visit our website, phillaurenpodcast.com.au. You'll find all the links there to go and check out the course. There's a lot of free content, a free module that you can do that will teach you all the things that you need to know as to get a good starting point as to how to actually think like a recruiter, not just a university graduate, to open a door. Because if you're not getting interviews and you're not getting getting 3 interviews that you got to start doing something differently.
That's right.
So let's get into this. The title. So if you go to a barbecue and you amongst a group of people that don't work in construction, and they say, so what do you do for work? And you go, I'm a contract administrator. I go, yeah, okay. Okay. What is the perception of that? There's that word administrator.
Yeah. Look, I think your receptionist joke, which I'm still laughing at on the inside. I think they do think it is this kind of administrative role, and this is where I think we're really going to debate, because I do think the title matters, and I think people overlook the complexity of this role, which I think is one of the most challenging roles in construction, obviously. And God, they're all challenging. I said that about the project coordinator role too, sorry. But the more I think about it, it's very, very true. I do think that is a problem. And I think when you say it, people fail to realise how crucial this role is to the construction process.
Yeah, look, I think the people in the job and the people in the company, they obviously know.
But when you do so, yeah.
But I think there is definitely something in it, in the title. And I know that there's a few builders out there, and there's one particular builder that I work with that actually referenced this conversation with me directly a couple of years ago. And he said, I don't call my CAs because it sounds like it's a administration role, which it isn't. So they call them assistant project managers or junior project managers.
Well, it's true. If you're at that barbecue and you say I'm a project manager,
Well, there's this massive difference, isn't there? Like if you say to someone, I'm a project manager, they're like, oh, okay. If you say to someone, I'm a contract administrator, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. And then what sits in between that for most people, it's like senior contract administrator. It's like being head waitress, It's like it's that whole administration title. Now we can make the argument from one side and say, we know project managers that have gotten jobs and titles as project managers in organizations that are set up in a certain way.
True.
And they're not really project managers. They feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside because they've got the title. But when you dig deeper and you look at, what they're earning, what they're delivering, what the actual core of their role, you realize that you're not really a project manager.
Sometimes a title is just a title. Yep.
And then you have people we've spoken with that. I spoken to someone the other day and they're like, oh, just contract administrator, and was quite humble in the way that they described themselves. And when we went through it all, it's like, what are your salary on? And he's like 180 plus super. You're like, wow, okay. And then we went through what he delivers and what he does day to day.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, well, you're earning that money.
Yeah.
So that person is worth significantly more to an employer than the pseudo PM that's got a title just because it sounds good.
Yes.
Now, how much importance do you want to put on this name brand, and it's, I don't know, like we again live in a time where, the box, the packaging, the thing comes in is often more important than the thing on the inside. We buy things these days and then you think, well, the box that this thing came in cost more than whatever is on the inside.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
That's
true.
It's like my but people are buying $120 water bottles. It's like, well, it's just a container that holds the water on the inside.
Okay, it's true. That is ridiculous.
And I think I listen to a lot of philosophy. I'm a big Alan Watts fan. If people have heard with him, is a philosopher that was around, a bit of a hippie philosopher that was around in the 60s and is long since dead. But he talks a lot of the confusion with the menu, the word. People are more, if you get too hung up on the words or the labels, it's like trying to eat a menu instead of the dinner. So I make the argument and say, look, if you're so hung up on the titles, then you're kind of shortchanging yourself, because it's not about the title. The word is just a label on something. And what we have discovered is that the title means so many different things to so many people across so many different types of organizations, tiers and industry segments, and that's what we'll go into a little more detail here, that you can't just say a contract administrator is a contract administrator.
It's true, and we do need to unpack all of that and what it means in different places. But I think words and titles can be important. For example, and we've been doing our grad course, we've been talking to a lot of graduates, and I have never had a graduate say to me, I want to be a contract administrator or a senior contract administrator one day. They all want to be project managers because the term project manager sounds sexy, because it sounds like you're managing something. It sounds like you're in charge of something, sounds like you're a leader. And that needs to change. I mean, yes, the term contract administrator kind of does sound like an administrative role, which we know that it's not. So yes, the term in and of itself could perhaps have a change. But I don't think it's just that. I think the fact that you sit with this title for a long period of time. Like you sit as a CA and then you become a senior CA in most places. Obviously there are changes, but then there's kind of not really very far for you to go. I mean, we know senior CAs that have been senior CAs for 10, 15 years. And I think that is a problem, because there's very few places for them to go. And when we sort of get to the career progression part of this podcast, which we will get to as well, because that is a barrier, getting past that to the few roles that are past it. But the fact that you sit with this for so long and there aren't many places to go, there isn't kind of recognition for being that senior CA for 5 years, there's nothing to work towards. I think that's a problem too. People like that they can work towards the next thing. It's motivating. They feel like they're recognised if there are multiple steps to take and multiple points of recognition for their skills.
But there are multiple things in this. There is the name, the title, and then there is all the other things that go with it. If we're just talking about the title, it's like when I worked in I don't want to make comparisons between recruitment and construction because they're very different. But just as an example, like when I worked at a big corporate recruitment company, we had all these titles that you work through, and it was just a carrot that was dangled in front of you. So you went from trainee consultant to recruitment consultant to senior consultant to principal consultant to section manager to business manager. Those were all of the steps that I went through, and each time I got like a small pay rise, but I did exactly the same thing. It was really only the title that sort of moved on, and the perception that you have within the company was like you were more senior than others. But it was all smoke and mirrors. So construction is different because there's a lot more substance around, as a CA, the packages that you're sitting across and the decisions that you make that impacts the profitability of projects and outcomes and all those things. So I think if we use the term rebrand, but if we know if you're looking at it from a marketing perspective, we all know that a brand is more than just a logo and a name, right? So a brand stands for something, or should stand for something. So if you think about it from that perspective, is like, yes, the CA, it's a title and a salary package, but within that goes, if you're working for a good business, there should be five years worth of constant learning, progression and challenge within that role available to you for you not to get bored and feel like, it's a long time between drinks before I get to the next title. The title, yes, it might sit there for a long time. But, I was just talking to a PM just yesterday about this topic, and this sort of leads us into the career progression piece, is that he said, I was in this business and I felt like I was getting really good as a CA. I needed to take the next step, but the only next step that was available to me in the company to get the salary that I wanted and to get the promotion that I felt I deserved was project manager. And then they offered it to me. And I knew in my heart of hearts that jump was too big and I probably shouldn't have taken it. I was probably 2 years premature, but I wanted the money and I wanted the progression. So I took it. And in hindsight, I mean, he didn't say he shouldn't have taken it, but he said if there was another step in between, I would have been better off. I would have been a better PM. I would have been more well-rounded, and I wouldn't have. Those 2 years were difficult, and I the performance that he was able to show in his first 2 years as a PM wasn't as good as he would have liked. Now that was unique to that particular business and that to his circumstance and to the people that he worked with and under. But he's in the hindsight, looking back now, he said I should have worried less about the title and been more patient with it.
Worry more about skills progression than the title.
But the money is there, but we'll come to that. We'll come to that later because there is this gap, particularly in the tier 3 space where we've got, I always say 160 grand for a tier 3 CA is a lot of money. Anything between 160, 180, you're really sort of starting to get very difficult in the market that we play in to pay CAs. But that's the kind of the low end for PMs.
In the tier 3
so
space,
all of a sudden, once you go from senior CA to PM, that 160 to either to 180 space is a gap to bridge. Now, if you want that money, if you feel you deserve that pay bracket, then what do you do? So that's sort of going ahead of ourselves with the money part. We'll come back to that in a minute. But we've also had some real interesting conversations with regards to the career progression piece. I think to close off the title part is like, I don't think the industry is just all of a sudden going to change all the titles. I think we're stuck with those titles. They are what they are. And I think if you can make peace with forgetting about the title and looking at what's in front of you, what are you delivering, what does it mean for your career, what you're learning, all of the things that really matter, not just the label, then you're probably better off. But I do accept and acknowledge, and yes, it has an impact. And I think there's a lot to be said for the whole premature promotion to project manager that we saw a lot in the boom post-COVID time.
Yes,
and a lot of the business owners have spoken about that to me in the last couple of years, about how many PM people they promoted to project manager because it was the supply and demand equation, and there was all the pressures, and they either had to promote them or lose them. It was a clear-cut choice like that. And how much of that is, I think a lot of it is to do with, it is the money, and it is also the title. It's like, I don't want to be a contract administrator anymore because there's this perception that goes with it that I want to get away from. I want to be a PM because that's what the rock stars do.
Rockstar PMs.
So we've had some interesting discussions then in terms of the career progression, and I think let's maybe start with the person that you spoke to that doesn't want to be a PM. It
was interesting. So this is when we were testing the waters, because, we have these ideas for podcasts and sometimes you have to test the waters to see, like, is this a genuine concern? And I spoke to someone who's an early career CA, 3 years in. And I guess I got lucky. I spoke to someone who's like, actually, I've been thinking about this. He said, I came out of uni and I was all hell-bent, I'm going to be a PM. I said, so does every person coming out of uni that I speak to. And he said, I've been watching my PM in particular in the last year, and it's not the life that I want. He said, and so now I'm thinking, what does my future look like? He says, I really enjoy what I'm doing now, and I'm projecting myself down the track, and I'm not sure. Like, I don't necessarily see the role that I want to do. I want to be a CA, but, where is my career progression in that? What does it look like for me 10, 15 years down the track? And he said, so I want to do some kind of commercial management role, but he says there's not a lot of them. 3 years in, and he's already questioning where his future lies.
And I think that's a challenge for the industry. Now, I've spoken to a lot of company directors, senior leaders about this. Some people don't think it's a problem at all. Some people say, yes, it's a problem. Some people have actually really wanted to talk to me, and I had an hour-long conversation with someone that actually spent the last 3 years trying to fix that problem by restructuring the business around it. And this leads us to that point that I think it's not a clear-cut answer, because I think it depends on the company type, the project types, the scale, and the way that the methodologies that the business follows that makes them successful. And I don't think there's a one size fits all. If you're building high-rise $100 million apartments, or you're building fit-out projects, or you're doing industrial design and construct mainly, early contractor involvement type projects. I think in the last 10 years we've seen a lot of builders go bankrupt and leave the industry, and we've seen a lot of new businesses come in, and I think a lot of the newer businesses have tried to find different ways of structuring businesses, of structuring teams, of how they win work and how they deliver work to be competitive and profitable, and all those things. And what we've seen is we see businesses setting teams and up in different ways.
Yes.
And the responsibilities from project delivery that centers around the CA, whether it's project coordination, whether it's procurement, contracts management and negotiation, and then even some of the project management parts of it. It gets very murky sometimes from one business to the next. We've seen some of the larger scale high rise mid-tier builders. You see some of them that can run teams pretty lean compared to other builders that do projects of a similar value. Like if you think about $100 million job that a certain builder runs with a team that's got this many people in it, and you look at their experience to date and you go, wow, okay, that looks pretty lean to me from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And then you look at another builder that builds the same value project.
Yes.
But the value of those, the style of those projects can be quite different. Like if it's commercial apartments, often they'll say to you, look, it might sound like a lot of value, but it's the same thing replicated over and over. So they often have senior people sitting over the top that really hold the purse strings tight, that really oversees a lot of the big decision makers. And the project managers don't get as much pull and as much decision making as they would do in certain other builders, and therefore they often are not as experienced because they don't need to be. And then that flows down to how the CAs operate. So we see all of these different layers, and then we've spoken to another business that have consciously put a lot more layers in between the CA and the PM.
Yes.
And they've done senior CA, and then they've got multiple contracts managers, and then multiple commercial managers.
Yes.
And their projects aren't big. They're still running $8 to $20 million projects in the fit out space. And then, I asked the question, I said, well, how does it stack up commercially? How does it make it profitable? And they said, well, because we're making smart decisions and, we commercially savvy, those people pay for themselves.
They do.
But then you put that model to a different builder and they say, well, that doesn't work for us. Can't work for us. So there is no clear-cut answer. But so I think in terms of the career progression, we do have CAs that feel like, I don't want to be a PM, but in the business, it might just be, it is what it is, and then that might mean you have to move on to something else. There's another business that the directors take the view of, if you a CA that don't want to be a project manager, then you lack ambition.
Yeah,
that's just their worldview. That's just how they say it.
Yeah, because in that business, that's the line. It's CA, PM.
Yeah,
that's where you go. Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think. I think what we find is that when you've got businesses, like that business in particular, that they've worked in that business for 20 years, and that's kind of their worldview. That's how it operates. So it's hard then and it works. Yeah. So why would you change it? So you've got all these different worldviews of people around the place, and I think a lot of CAs, when they're working in businesses and have been in businesses for a long time, or have been in businesses of a similar setup for a period of time, they think that, well, that's all. It's all like that. It's all there is. So if I want the promotion, I have to go be a PM, or I have to do it this way, because that's how it is.
Yes.
But what we are finding from looking at it from across many different tiers and many different segments, that it's not like that.
There are certainly plenty of businesses that completely segment the CAs and the PCs, and they don't expect CAs to be PMs. In fact, they're not.
Yeah.
CAs don't become PMs in their business. They don't expect them to. If you're a CA, you're never going to be a PM in their business.
Yeah. There was, some of them will say, do you want to be a commercial management path or a project management path? And so I've had people say to me, CAs don't make good PMs. And then I've had people say to me, you can't be a good PM if you're not a good CA. And then I've had people say to me, good CAs don't always make PMs. You can be a great PM but a terrible CA and vice versa. And we've heard all different variations of that. And it depends on, the business sets it up where you've got a pathway that goes project coordinator, project engineer, PM, and then you've got the commercial path split off where you've got CA, contracts managers, commercial manager. They very much have that view that no, the CA shouldn't be PMs. They do contracts and they do paperwork in the office.
Yeah.
But then if you're in the tier 3 space, then the CA and the project coordination piece is all together, and then it's all it's not clear cut.
It's not. So there are so many businesses working in so many different ways. You really have to think about what way would work for you.
So when we bring it back now to career progression, so if someone wants to be don't want to be a PM and they're stuck in a business that don't have that headroom to move up. The challenge is that when you start looking for contracts managers and commercial management roles, there isn't that many. Like any commercial builder can have 5, 6, however many project managers, but they'll typically only have one commercial manager unless they're a very large organisation.
Yes. Or unless they're particularly structured for it.
So how do we? So the question then is, how do you position a CA function of a role and at an equivalent level to a PM and pay them the same in the mid-tier space to make it more appealing for people to follow that career path as a real career pathway and not feel like they are seen as a plodder or not ambitious because they don't want to be a PM or there's something wrong with them. Like you can easily from a recruitment perspective go like, well, why have you been a CA for 8 years? What's wrong with you? You should be a PM by now.
But some people love that. Like I spoke to a CA who'd been a CA for 15 years who said, I just love saving money on projects. And I'm sorry, if you're a commercial builder, that answer should fill you with excitement. This is the person you would want on your team. I just love saving money on projects. You actually want that person.
But those people that do it for that length of time, they are often the exception rather than the rule. And and those people are in such high demand. Like I'm sure if that person came to us, we'd be able to place them 5 days a week in however many places we want.
If I could have 10 of those, that'd be great.
Because that's what everyone wants, and that's really where we started this episode. Is like we don't have enough of those people.
Yeah.
And what is causing that to be the case? We've got. PMs are still hard to find, but there's a lot of project managers, but you don't have a lot of those people.
Yeah, that have that passion for that.
Those people. But is it that they don't have a passion for it, or is it because they feel like there's this pressure that if you want to get ahead, you need to step out of that and get to the next level, which is traditionally project management?
And it could be a combination of both. And it's a lot of things. It's all the things that we've talked about. It's the perception of the role. Perhaps it's the opportunity to learn and grow. It's the money. It's the development opportunities. It's all of those things that are getting in the way of those people getting to that point.
So if we talk about the money, I think the other thing to note then is that contract administration, if we just use that as a word or a term, there's contract administrators that earn 80 grand out there, and then we've seen some that are earning 230 grand and everything in between. So that should give people, especially the graduates that might listen to this episode, that there's a big difference. There can be a massive difference from one contract administrator to the next.
Yeah.
and this is when we get hung up on titles and names,
Yes.
where you can fall into traps, because if you're standing at that barbecue and you're talking to someone that tells you they're a contract administrator, meanwhile they're earning 220 grand and they've just saved $10 million on their last project by being a smart decision.
And they they may actually be earning 60 grand more than the PM at the same barbecue, who sounds more impressive, or even more, depending on where that PM is working and what sort of projects they're working on.
Yeah.
And can I just say, the same CA, this experienced 15-year CA that I mentioned, one message she did ask me to get across in this podcast was to graduates looking, coming into the industry. One of her main frustrations was trying to impart her knowledge to graduates about really, saving money and understanding procurement, and her frustration that they were all like, I'm going to be a PM one day. I don't need to know that. But you can have a great career as a CA, earn a lot of money, have a lot of satisfaction in it by learning from people like her. And also, who's to say you wouldn't prefer this? Who's to say? And be great at it. Don't close it down. Anyway. Sorry.
No, I think, it's a lot of people try and get away from that role too early, and I don't know whether that is because the tasks early on in the career can be seen as sometimes quite monotonous when you doing claims and you're doing this and that, which can be quite paperwork heavy, and this is where all the people that try and sell AI tools and are in that camp feel like the AI is going to take a lot of the administration tasks away or make it easier or more streamlined. I was talking to someone yesterday that works in the tier one business, a big tier one on massive projects, and his view of contract administrators is like, they just do administration and do claims and sit there and push paper around. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're working in a large team like that with lots of people and lots of layers, then some people, yes, maybe some of them do that, because there's so many people doing the administration task of $1 billion project, as I'm sure there's a lot to it. So perhaps some of the automated tools will take away the administration part of it. But being able to make smart commercial decisions, leverage your relationships with with subcontractors, with consultants, with the client, to get smart outcomes, profitable outcomes by good negotiations, good relationship management skills, and in the design and construct space, working closely with the design team to make smart design decisions that ultimately dictate whether the project fails or makes profit. Well, those are the things that is so centers around a lot of it around the contract administration part, but it is not administration.
No, it's very much those interpersonal soft skills.
Yeah.
And the really good ones have both of those at a really, really high level.
And I think it's that word that misrepresents the real function. I often say to graduates and people when they talk about the word contract administration, or they talk about that word, I'll say to them, can you tell me what makes someone an exceptional contract administrator? Now, if you ask this question to a lot of people in the industry, you're going to get a lot of different answers, and I have done. Not everyone agrees with me. I think a good contract administration is someone who actually can make money on the project, who can straddle that line where you make sure that you look after your subbies, make sure that you protect the relationship with the subbies and do the right thing by them, make sure you look after the client, but make the margin as big as you can. And I'm sure that's a real art form to do. It's incredibly difficult to do that, because these things are competing. If you screw the subbies, you'll burn them. You might make a margin, but in busy times they're not going to work for them. So you constantly have to have all these things in mind, but someone who leverages relationships and knowledge and can find creative and innovative ways to make that work whilst keeping the administration part tight, that makes someone a great contract administrator. But some people have got other views of that, and again, it depends on their particular makeup of what the function of the role is. But the AI I can't see a world where it replaces that part of it, because it is based on nuance, it is based on people, it's based on relationships and all of those things. But the AI was definitely going to lighten and make the administration part perhaps much more efficient and easier, and it's already no doubt doing so and will continue to do so. So will AI rebrand the contract administrator into something different? I don't know what we would call it. Maybe it is in many businesses more akin to an assistant project manager.
It will, yeah, but it's going to put more of that focus on the stuff that I think makes for the best ones. And it's been interesting when we've been preparing for this podcast. I've spoken to some of those contracts managers, commercial managers, the ones that have made the leap. Is it all right for me to talk about this without ruining the plans? So I've spoken to some people that have made it to those rare contracts manager, commercial manager positions, and it's been quite interesting. The skill set that they have that's taken them to that level. One of them was talking about the fact that he said he thought he would actually make a really good project manager, and he did have those interpersonal skills. And he sat down with his line manager, who checks in with him regularly, and he said to him, sort of when the time was coming to talk about what his next step was, he says, I think I could be a good project manager, but I think I could be a great commercial manager because I have all of these skills, and I think I'd rather be great at something than good at something. And then they gave him that pathway to go down there. So that those interpersonal skills were the key to that role.
Yeah, I think if you were to contrast a project manager versus a commercial manager, I think both of them need to have that interpersonal skills. But I think there's an argument to say the commercial as a recruiter, I also always enjoy talking to, if you're doing business development, you always have great conversations with the commercial managers, because they're very rarely abrupt or obnoxious or rude to you, because recruiters are pests and they call and worry, hassle people all day, every day long. That's what recruiters do. But you'd never find a commercial manager will just cut you short, because they understand that you never know where a conversation will lead, and they are very protective of their relationship and their brand and their reputation and everything else, and they live and breathe that. And by the time they get to be a commercial manager, that's just ingrained in the DNA that they have. So they often tend to be, they must be able to deal with I think the management of conflict is perhaps quite different, because it's more a commercial negotiation rather than a disaster on site that you have to deal with as a project manager. That's potentially, the conflict might be more aggressive rather than strategic, maybe. Is that a way of putting it? So I think the way that the leadership skills that you perhaps show in those two career pathways there's probably some real subtle differences to the two in terms of what you become really, really good at. But no doubt in both of them, you're going to have real strong communication skills and all those things. But I think the attention to detail that you have also is probably quite different. I think we've become, especially in the last 5 years or so, the emphasis on the legality of contracts and the legal stuff side of it has become, I think most people will agree, it's taken it to the next level. You've spoken to that person that mentioned the contracts the other day.
Yesterday I had a long conversation with a contracts manager who embodied all of those things that you just talked about, and all of those interpersonal skills as well as the technical skills. And he said the same thing. He said, once upon a time, you did the contract and you put it in a drawer and everybody just understood and got on with the job. And he said, nowadays you have to pull it out and you have to look at it carefully, and you decide where to push and where not to, because things are so tight. And the industry has been difficult in the last couple of years, and you have to really think about, where do I want to push this and where do I not? And we also speak to CAs that have to go back to their contracts because subbies will say, no, that quote was for one wall, not for all four.
Yeah.
Times are changing.
So I think I think if we talk about how the industry is evolving, how technology is evolving, how the administration part of it is evolving, I think with all of that, the way it's going, you can ask the question: Will the function, the contract administration function, will the demand increase? Will it become more complex? Will that function of the delivery process become even more valuable with time, or will it become less valuable with automation and AI effectively? And I think that, and I was talking to someone yesterday that was actually in the AI sphere about contract administration, and I said, I put this to him and he agreed with me. I think at the two ends of the spectrum, if you're dealing with things that are very, very simplistic, very automated, very repetitive, maybe if it's a subcontractor that do a lot of things, or a bill of quantities for a volume builder, it's all the same. Those things will probably, the value in terms of the business caliber, go down from the employee, because it'll be automated.
Yeah.
On the other end, where you've got massive projects with lots of layers, where there have traditionally been people sitting in seats doing administration tasks at volume, those things will probably decrease. But I think the bit in the middle, where you have to think, you have to have everything in your head about the legal side of it, the people side of it, the design side of it, the relationship management side of it, and the fact that you can't just pull out a contract necessarily and bend your subcontractor over a barrel because you can do legally, or your client because you can do legally, because you might get away with it for now, but the next project's going to bite you.
That's right.
So you got to constantly think about the long and the short game.
Yes.
There are all of these variables in place, and nothing is black and white. And there's so much subtlety in that, so you have to have all of the technical know-how, all of the interpersonal skills and all those things. I think that part of the contract administration piece is only going to become more valuable.
Yes.
The demand of it is going to increase.
Yeah.
And that side of it is going to be even more important. So I think for people that, whatever you want to call that, it's not, I mean, I don't think contract administration is the right term to describe that function in a delivery team.
No.
So whatever label you want to put on it, I think it's going to become more and more valuable. And I think people that can invest and upskill themselves by focusing on the right things that actually make projects more successful, will carve a unique career path for themselves at time. And I think that was proven by a tier 3 builder that we met with the other day, and we asked this question, and I said, what happens when you have a contract administrator that is worth 180, 200 grand, but you're a tier 3 builder building $10 million jobs? How does that stack up? And he said, it's always in the builder's power to make that decision. And if you show me someone like that, and they can demonstrate their value, and it stacks up, it's in the builder's interest, and it's also in their power to make the decision to hire that person and to make that role available. So it is happening, and it can happen. But the problem we have at the moment is that it's the exception rather than the rule, because there's not an abundance of these people with these skills, with demonstrated skills that can show improved commercial outcomes, that are knocking on the door, say, hey, pay me 200 grand. This is what I can deliver on projects. Everyone sort of talks about it, but few people show it. But they just see that function as a transient part to get to PM.
So the people that are the best at this, if they work on their commercial skills, their interpersonal skills, their negotiation skills, these people will become more and more valuable as time goes on.
100%. And I think those skills will very highly depend on the type of builder that you work for. If you're working for a builder where the project coordinator, we've got a stream of project engineers, project coordinators, project engineers, and project managers, and on this side you've got that commercial management path, which is typical in the upper tier 2, tier 1 space. Then if you want to continue a career pathway in that space, then the things that you probably need to focus on and improve will look one way, and that's probably going to be more legal, or, you know, all of the real strong commercial
it's quite
nuance,
different, yes.
whereby if you're working in another builder where it might be a little bit more fluid and it's not so clear cut, you might have to wear a few different hats.
Yes.
And it might look different.
And some people love that.
Yeah. But I think it's the message, I think, is that everyone, we've got all of these CAs, all these people, you know, all of the work we're doing with the grads. And I always make this joke. It's like, you know, like you ask 100 graduates, what do you want to be? And they'll tell you you're going to be a project manager. Well, where are we going to be in 10 years' time when everyone is just rushed through the CA or project coordinator role to try and get through it as fast as possible just so we can be a project manager? Well, no one is actually becoming really, really good then at that role. Yeah. A role is just sort of seen as a stepping stone. And as an employer, you're always going to have this gap in the middle. You've got all these people at the top wanting to run the show, but no one that has got real commercial substance and nous to deliver real value in the middle, because everyone is just going through it. Yeah. So something has got to shift somewhere in terms of how do we make this part more palatable for people as a career pathway in its own right.
So if you've got a feel for it, see it as an opportunity to become great at it. And maybe there's a role for employers in here too to continue, because we are seeing it, to continue to invest in these people to keep them in those roles, because they're going to be more and more important.
Be interesting to see how it shakes out over the next decade. Well, not even decade, 5 years. Everything with technology and AI and everything seems to be changing. Not even, you know, what used to take 5 years, takes 6 months now to change by the sound of it, but sometimes it feels that way. But to follow up with a question, then, do we need to rebrand the CA role? What do you think, Lauren?
Oh, I think we could. I think it might help.
What do you want to call it?
Oh, God, that takes a lot of thought. I don't know. Everyone should be a commercial manager, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, then the real commercial managers won't feel very happy about that.
Spank me.
Yeah, I think the pressures of the industry is going to rebrand it anyway. I think it'll just be an organic byproduct of commercial pressures over the time. As things change, roles will keep changing and people will be getting paid where they deliver value. In terms of a brand is more than just a title. Will the actual name on the name that would have been on your business cards, no one's got business cards anymore, but the way that's the name that's on the words that's at the bottom of your order signature, will that change? I don't know, but does it matter? To some it does. I don't think it should. But hey, if you love the box more than the thing on the inside, then maybe you should fight for your title.
Hard to argue with that.
Thanks for listening.